He had everything: money, cars, fame. But one lie would reveal who truly loved him. This is the story of Kaelo, the man who lost everything, only to find the woman who saw his soul, not his wealth. Because sometimes, love doesn't come from luxury. It comes from the ashes of truth.
When the money is gone, the cars disappear, and the beautiful house becomes an empty shell, what is left? For a man named Kaelo, this was not just a question. It was a painful test. A test that would unmask the devil hiding behind an angel's face and reveal a love so pure it could only have been sent by the ancestors themselves. A billionaire whose name was whispered in boardrooms and whose face graced the covers of magazines. He lived in a house that kissed the clouds, a palace of white marble and sparkling glass that looked down upon the city like a silent king. He had everything a man could dream of, and yet his heart was a lonely place to him, most especially when he looked at his girlfriend, Adana. Adana was a creature of beauty and light. Her skin was like polished cocoa, her smile could disarm armies, and her laughter was like music. She moved through Kaelo's world with the grace of a queen, her fingers always adorned with his diamonds, her wardrobe filled with clothes from Paris and Milan. She loved the life Kaelo gave her, and she told him she loved him more than life itself. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, Kaelo would see a flicker in her eyes. A coldness that vanished as quickly as it appeared. He would hear it in her words, a hunger for more, always more. One evening, as they sat in their palace overlooking the city lights, Adana scrolled through her phone, sighing. "Look at this, Kaelo," she said, showing him a picture of a new, impossibly expensive sports car. "Victoria's husband just bought her this. It's the latest model." Kaelo looked at the picture, then at her. "It's just a car, my love. A piece of metal." Adana pouted, her beautiful lips forming a perfect shape of disappointment. "It's not just a car. It's a statement. It shows that he adores her, that he would give her the world." She looked away, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Sometimes I wonder, if you lost all of this tomorrow, would you still be the man I love?" The question was meant to be romantic, but it struck Kaelo's heart like a shard of ice. He looked into her eyes, searching for sincerity, but all he saw was a reflection of the glittering city lights. That night, a seed of doubt was planted in his soul, and it began to grow. But Kaelo lived a secret life. Twice a week, he would shed his expensive suits and his billionaire identity. He would put on simple trousers, a faded shirt, and drive an old beaten-up car to a different part of the city. There, he was not Kaelo, the tycoon. He was Kwesi, a humble librarian, a simple man with a quiet smile and a gentle heart. And it was in this world that he had met Essie. Essie was not like Adana. She did not wear diamonds or designer clothes. Her beauty was not loud. It was quiet, like the gentle light of the dawn. It shone from her eyes, which were kind and full of a deep, calming wisdom. She worked at a small clinic as a nurse, and on weekends, she helped her mother at their family's fruit stall in the market. Kaelo, as Kwesi, had met her when he'd stopped to buy mangoes. Her smile had captured him instantly. It was a smile that expected nothing, but gave everything. He found himself returning to the market again and again, just to speak with her, to hear her laugh. He told her he was a librarian, a man of books and quiet thoughts. He didn't have much, but he had dreams. Essie did not care about his empty pockets. She cared about the words he spoke, the kindness in his eyes, the way he listened to her dreams of one day opening a small school for the village children. Their love was built on shared meals of roasted plantain, long walks by the river, and conversations that lasted late into the night. With Essie, Kaelo felt seen. She was not in love with a billionaire. She was in love with Kwesi, a man who had nothing to offer but his heart. And so, Kaelo was torn between two worlds, the dazzling, glamorous world with Adana and the simple, truthful world with Essie. The doubt planted by Adana's words grew into a towering tree, and he knew he could not live this life forever. He had to know the truth. He had to know who truly loved him. He devised a plan. A terrible, painful plan. He would pretend to lose everything. He called his most trusted friend and head of security, a large stoic man named Femi. In the sterile silence of his vast office, Kayilo explained his idea. Femi's face, usually a mask of calm, was filled with shock. "Sir, you cannot be serious. To pretend to be bankrupt? The media, the business partners, the risk is too great. The risk of living a lie is greater," Femi, Kayilo said, his voice heavy. "I need to strip away the gold and see what remains. I need to become a poor man, not just in disguise, but in the eyes of the one who claims to love me most. You will be the one to break the news to Adana. Tell her a bad investment wiped me out. Everything is gone. The house, the cars, the accounts, everything." Femi looked at his friend, at the deep sadness in his eyes, and finally he nodded slowly. "As you wish, Kayilo. But I pray you are prepared for what you might find." Kailo's face was grim. "I am prepared for the worst. It is the only way to find what is real." The day came. Femi, a brilliant actor in his own right, arrived at the mansion where Adana was planning a lavish party. He put on a performance of a lifetime. His face was a mask of despair, his voice choked with emotion. He found Adana directing servants, a frown on her face as she pointed at a floral arrangement. "No, no. The orchids from Kenya, not these cheap lilies." "Adana," Femi said, his voice trembling. She turned, irritated. "Femi, what is it? Can't you see I'm busy?" There is terrible news," he stammered. "It's Kayilo. There was a deal, an investment in foreign oil. It collapsed. He was betrayed. Adana, everything is gone." Adana stared at him, her perfectly painted face blank. "Gone? What do you mean, gone? The cars, the jet, everything," Femi confirmed, his heart heavy. "The banks have seized the assets. The house? They will take the house by the end of the week. He has nothing left." For a moment, there was a deafening silence. The world seemed to stop. Adana's face went through a storm of emotions. First, disbelief, then confusion. Then her beautiful features twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. "Nothing?" she screeched, her voice shrill and ugly. "Nothing? How could he be so stupid? How could he do this to me?" She didn't ask if Kayilo was okay. She didn't ask what had happened. Her first thought was not for the man she claimed to love, but for the lifestyle she was about to lose. Femi watched in silence as the beautiful angel transformed into a raging demon. That evening, Adana stormed into the small, modest apartment that Femi had arranged for Kayilo to stay in. It was clean but simple, a world away from their palace in the clouds. Kayilo was there, dressed in simple clothes, his face etched with fake despair. He looked up as she entered, her heels clicking angrily on the cheap laminate floor. "Adana, my love," he began, his voice weak. "Don't you, my love, me," she spat, her eyes blazing with a fire he had never seen before. "You idiot. You fool. I gave you my life, my youth, my beauty, and you threw it all away. What am I supposed to do now? My friends will laugh at me. I am ruined." Kaylo's heart, even though he was acting, broke a little. "But I thought you loved me, not my money. We can rebuild together." Adana let out a cruel, high-pitched laugh that echoed in the small room. "Together? Rebuild? With what? Your empty hands? I am not a village girl who can survive on love and yams, Kaylo. I am Adana. I was made for luxury. I will not be dragged down into the mud with you." She walked over to him, her face inches from his. He could smell her expensive perfume, a scent that now seemed toxic. "This is goodbye, Kayilo," she whispered, her voice like venom. She slipped the enormous diamond engagement ring from her finger and threw it on the table. It clattered, the sound loud and final. "I hope you enjoy being poor. It is a disease I have no intention of catching." And with that, she turned and walked out, leaving Kalo alone in the deafening silence, the glittering ring on the table, a symbol of a love that was never real. He closed his eyes, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. The first part of his test was over. The pain was real, sharper than he could have ever imagined. The next day, Kalo went to the market. He was no longer the heartbroken billionaire. He was Kwesi, the humble librarian, and his heart was heavy with a different kind of burden. How could he lie to Isi? How could he test a heart so pure? He found her at her mother's stall, her face lighting up when she saw him. That smile, it was like the sun breaking through the clouds of his despair. Kwesi, she exclaimed, her voice full of genuine joy. I was worried. You didn't call last night. He took a deep breath, preparing for the second act of his painful play. He put on a look of profound sadness, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Isi, I have some bad news, he said, his voice barely a whisper. The library, they are closing it down. I lost my job. Isi's beautiful smile did not vanish. It softened, her eyes filling with concern. She immediately wiped her hands on her apron and took his hands in hers. Her touch was warm, comforting. Oh, Kwesi, she said softly. She didn't shout. She didn't blame him. She didn't ask what would happen to her. Her first question was, are you all right? The simple question, filled with so much genuine care, was almost enough to make Kalo break down and tell her everything. But he held on. He had to see it through. I will be, he lied, looking at the ground. But I have nothing now. My savings are small. I don't know how I will manage. Isi squeezed his hands tightly. You mean we don't know how we will manage, she corrected him gently. Your struggle is my struggle, Kwesi. We are in this together. He looked up, shocked. But Isi, I have nothing to offer you. I am a man with no job, no future. Isi shook her head, a small, determined smile on her face. You offered me your heart. That is more than enough. Money comes and goes. Jobs can be found. But a good man, a kind heart, that is a treasure. We will not go hungry. I have my work at the clinic, and we have the market stall. We will eat. We will survive. That evening, she insisted he come to her small family home for dinner. It was a humble place, filled with laughter, the smell of cooking, and a warmth that Kalo's mansion had never known. Isi's mother, a wise woman with kind eyes, treated him with the same respect she always had. After dinner, as they sat outside under the stars, Isi quietly slipped a small, knotted handkerchief into his hand. What is this? He asked. It is not much, she said, her cheeks flushing slightly. It is my savings. For the school I wanted to build, but you need it more right now. Use it. To get by until you find something else. When you are on your feet again, you can pay it back. If not, it does not matter. Kalo opened the handkerchief. Inside was a small bundle of worn-out notes. It was her entire life savings, her dream. And she was giving it to him, a man she believed to be a jobless librarian, without a moment's hesitation. At that moment, holding her dream in his hands, Kalo felt a wave of emotion so powerful it almost brought him to his knees. He was the billionaire, the man who could buy anything he wanted. But he had never, in his entire life, been given a gift so precious. This was not love for what he had. This was love for who he was. This was real. But the story does not end there. Because fate, in its mysterious way, had one more shocking card to play. You see, what Kalo did not know was that Adana and Isi were not strangers. They were cousins. They had grown up in the same village, a place Adana had long since abandoned and tried to forget. Adana had always looked down on Isi, mocking her simple life, her humble dreams, and her refusal to chase after rich men. A few weeks after leaving Kayelo, Adana's life began to crumble. Her friends vanished when the money was gone. She was forced to sell her jewelry and clothes. Humiliated and desperate, she heard a rumor from her village. A wealthy chief from a neighboring town was looking for a new, sophisticated wife. He was old, but fabulously rich. Seeing this as her only way back to the top, Adana swallowed her pride and decided to travel to her home village to arrange a meeting. At the same time, Kelo, now fully convinced of Isi's love, decided it was time to end the charade. But he wanted to do it in a way that would honor her. He wanted to ask for her hand in marriage properly, in front of her family and his own elders. He told Isi that his uncles in his home village wanted to meet her. Isi, overjoyed, agreed. And so it happened that on the very same day, Adana, dressed in her last remaining designer outfit, arrived in the village, her face a mask of contempt for the red dust and simple huts. And Isi arrived with Kayelo still pretending to be the poor Kwesi, her heart filled with nervous excitement. Kayelo's ancestral home was the largest in the village. It was a traditional compound, humble but respectable, with a large courtyard shaded by an ancient baobab tree. The village elders were gathered, including Kayelo's real uncle, the true chief of the village. Adana arrived first, demanding to see the chief, who was seeking a wife. She was told to wait in the courtyard. Moments later, Isi and Kwesi walked in. When Adana saw Isi, her lips curled into a sneer. "Isi, what in the world are you doing here? Did you get lost on your way to the market?" she said, her voice dripping with scorn. Isi's face fell, hurt by her cousin's cruelty. "Adana, I am here to meet Kwesi's family." Adana looked Kelo up and down, from his simple sandals to his faded shirt, and let out a cackle. "This is him? This is the great love you spoke of. A broke librarian? Oh, Isi, you always did aim low. I am here to meet a chief. A real man. Perhaps he can hire your boyfriend to clean his shoes." Kelo's heart turned to stone. He watched the woman he once thought he loved humiliate the woman who had shown him the true meaning of the word. The test was over. Now it was time for the truth. He looked at Adana, his eyes no longer soft and pleading, but cold and hard as diamonds. "There is no chief looking for a wife, Adana," he said, his voice quiet but carrying a weight that made everyone fall silent. Adana frowned. "What are you talking about, you peasant? Move aside." "I think you misunderstood," Kelo continued, taking a step forward. "The man you came to see is me." And then the world stopped. From the main house, Femi emerged. But he was not dressed as a security guard. He was wearing the sharp tailored suit of a corporate executive. And in his hands, he carried an expensive briefcase. He walked to Kayelo's side and stood respectfully. Two more men in dark suits emerged and stood behind him. The village elders, who had been sitting quietly, now stood up, their faces grave. Kelo's uncle, the chief, stepped forward and placed a hand on Kelo's shoulder. "My nephew," the chief said, his voice booming across the silent courtyard. "Welcome home." Adana's jaw dropped. Her eyes darted from Kelo to Femi, to the chief, and back to Kelo. The blood drained from her face, replaced by a ghastly pale shock. Her mind was spinning, unable to connect the pieces. The poor librarian, the powerful chief's nephew, the suited men, Kekelo, she stammered, the name a choked whisper on her lips. Isi was just as confused. She looked at the man she knew as Kwesi, her heart pounding in her chest. Kelo ignored Adana and turned to Isi, his eyes softening into the look she knew and loved. He took her hands in his. "Isi," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "my name is not Kwesi, it is Kayelo. And I am not a librarian. Forgive me for my deception, but my heart was lost, and I had to find a way to know who loved the man and not the money he has." He then turned his gaze back to Adana, and it was like the sun being replaced by a winter storm. "You, Adana," he said, his voice ringing with power and pain. "You claimed to love me, but when you thought the money was gone, you threw me away like trash. You called me a fool and a failure. You walked away when I needed you most. Your love was built on a foundation of greed, and like a house built on sand, it has washed away. Then he looked back at Isi, his eyes now shining with tears. But you, Isi, you, who had so little, were ready to give me everything. When I had nothing, you offered me your home. You offered me your food. You offered me your entire life savings, your dream. You did not love a billionaire. You loved a man. You loved me. Adana let out a sob, a pathetic, desperate sound. She stumbled forward, falling to her knees. Kaelo, please, I didn't know. I made a mistake. I love you. I swear I love you. Forgive me. Kaelo looked down at her, not with anger, but with a deep, profound pity. The time for forgiveness is gone, Adana. You did not make a mistake. You simply revealed who you truly are. You can keep the lie you tried to sell me. I have found my truth. He then turned his back on the weeping woman on the ground and faced Esi, whose own eyes were overflowing with tears of shock, confusion, and dawning understanding. In front of the elders, his family, and the ancestors watching over them, Kaelo knelt down on one knee in the red dust of his village. He took her hand, the hand that had offered him everything when he had nothing. Isi, he said, his voice clear and strong, I am a man who has everything, and yet I had nothing until I met you. You have shown me what a rich heart looks like. Will you do me the greatest honor of my life? Will you marry me? Through her tears, Isi looked at the man on his knees before her. The man she fell in love with, Kwesi, Kaelo. It didn't matter. It was his heart she loved, and his heart had been true all along. She nodded, unable to speak, and a radiant tear-filled smile broke across her face. A cheer went up from the elders and the villagers who had gathered to watch. Adana remained a sobbing heap on the ground, a ghost at a feast of joy, a forgotten relic of a false life. And so, in the heart of a village where truth was valued more than gold, a billionaire found his greatest treasure. It was not in a bank vault or a skyscraper, but in the unwavering heart of a good woman. He learned that a house built on money can crumble in a day, but a home built on true love will stand for all eternity. And that was how a painful lie revealed a beautiful, unbreakable truth. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more emotional African stories.